The story of how Lotus Light Reiki came into the world and how it was introduced to me is a really interesting story. But in order to help you understand how, when I heard about Lotus Light Reiki from Spirit, that I completely trusted the information, I didn't question who was giving it to me, I have to take you back to my childhood in order to help you understand this. I was born in Japan to a Japanese mother and American soldier father. And by the time I was born, my father had left, and so my mother was raising me on her own. Unfortunately, she didn't have the money to feed me, and when I was a year old, I went without food for 3 days, and so she made the very difficult decision to put me up for adoption, and she took me to a local orphanage. A military family adopted me and brought me to the United States when I was 2 years old. One thing I did not know about them at the time, but it became evident in time, was that they had a very dark secret of mental health illness as well as alcoholism. So the environment I was raised in was very violent. There was a lot of mental, emotional, and physical abuse. But from the time of my first memories in life, I have always remembered that there's been this benevolent voice. When Spirit speaks to me, I always hear it coming in the left side. It's not as though someone was speaking to me directly in the physical. It's coming through inner hearing. But this benevolent being always protected me and always guided me. And I would hear things when it was getting chaotic in my home and it was starting to get dangerous. I would hear this benevolent being saying, stay in the bathroom, go into the bedroom, step behind this door. And I started realizing that this being was there to help me, to guide me, and to keep me safe. I never questioned who it was. I was a child. In fact, I was just barely beyond toddler when I had my first memories of being in life and hearing this. I also had the ability as a child to be able to see in the other realm. So I could see beings, I could see people, and as I grew up and my father and mother that adopted me began to realize that I was different, that I had these abilities, they began to express that I really needed to stop doing this, I needed to stop talking about it. So they began conditioning me not to talk to anyone about what I was experiencing. But I never stopped experiencing it, and I never stopped trusting it. So in 1998, I was trained in Usui Reiki, and I became a Usui Reiki master teacher and began teaching people in the late 90s. 1998 was my certification date, and I began experimenting with Reiki and teaching it after that. What I noticed right away with Reiki is that it was as if the Reiki presence was talking to me, communicating with me. And it was teaching me many different healing techniques and introducing me to all kinds of interesting energies and techniques that I could use to help people. And I was really profoundly surprised by the miracles and the experiences of healing that I was having. And it made me a little disappointed with my Reiki training, because I thought, wow, Reiki training, even though I had 3 levels of it, never taught me these things. So I was passing some of this on to my Reiki students, and I eventually started feeling uncomfortable with that because I felt like I was teaching Reiki beyond the traditional Usui Reiki curriculum, and I didn't want to dishonor Master Usui, so I made the decision to stop teaching, and I did for a while. And then one morning in 2004, I was getting ready for work in the morning, and I actually heard someone, a being, speak to me, and this being said, why don't we call it Lotus Light Reiki? And when I heard that, my heart chakra opened, and I just felt this beautiful feeling I knew that whatever it was very important. It was very beautiful. And I didn't need to know anything more about it. I didn't need to know who was telling me about this. I just said, yes, I love it. I'm available, thank you. And then I just thought, well, whatever it is, it's going to come in time. And I actually did start teaching Reiki again, and I called it Lotus Light Reiki. But now in hindsight, I realized that I did not fully understand what Lotus Light Reiki was. But I think that it was an important beginning for me to begin to get comfortable with teaching things that were beyond the Usui Reiki curriculum. So I did give myself the freedom to do that for a while. Then in 2010, I was planning to stay home for a day from work. I got up in the morning, I was still in my pajamas, and I got a cup of tea, and I had a comfortable place in my home, a really beautiful chair that I'd sit in every morning. It was my quiet spot and my place for contemplation and meditation. So I went there, and I immediately started feeling this tremendous download of energy, and I was seeing images, I was seeing symbols, I was seeing things that were familiar, things that were very unfamiliar. And it was coming in so fast and so furious. I had a sketch pad next to me, so I grabbed my sketch pad, I had pencils, and I just started drawing. And I have about a dozen drawings that came from that day. But even that day, I knew something important had happened, but I did not understand what it was. But I also trusted it, and I felt for myself, I just thought, when it's time, more will come. I'll understand this. I would look at these images that I drew, and I would think, I don't really understand this. But in time, I knew that I would. So after that point, it was 2023, and I was having a fun Reiki exchange with friends. I had never shared with anyone how Lotus Light Reiki came to me, how it was introduced to me, anything about it. But I was exchanging Reiki with two other friends. We had one person on the table, and two of us were giving her Reiki. And all of a sudden, I looked to my left, and I saw a Japanese man standing next to me. And he bent over, and he looked at the person on the table, and he looked around, and then he looked up at me, and he said, I think it's time that we teach them how to pass the empowerment. Don't you? And I looked at him, and I said, oh, okay. And then I looked at my friends, and I told them what I saw because I could trust them. And I knew they would understand. And they both were really happy, and they said, oh, we would love to learn how to pass this empowerment. So I began teaching them, and I told them the complete story of Lotus Light Reiki. And so that was the very first teaching of introducing it to other people. I still did not connect the dots. I did not realize who the man standing next to me was. Maybe I'm a little slow. Maybe it took me a little while. But in about, I would say 3 to 4 weeks, I might have been meditating or in a quiet place, and all of a sudden it was like the light bulb went off, and I realized that that was Master Usui. And then it was like chain reaction. It took me back to 2010, and I realized, oh, I received the empowerment then. And then it took me back to 2004, and it was like, oh, this is Lotus Light Reiki. And then once I had that, it was really like the light, and the crown chakra opened, and the throat chakra opened, and the heart chakra opened. And I started really receiving a much better picture of Lotus Light Reiki. And Master Usui really started working with me very directly at that point. In all of those years, he never revealed himself to be the person that was helping me. And I think that's because he's a very humble, very quiet energy. He's just very peaceful and silent most of the time. He's a very still energy. But I believe, and I realize looking back on it, that he wanted me to know he was the one that was helping me, because he wanted me to know that he was giving me the directive to begin teaching it to others. So I realized, oh, this is the time in my life when I am meant to go out and share this. So in spring of 2024, I taught my first class of, I believe I had 9 people in that class. They were all traditional Usui Reiki masters, and I invited them in to learn more about Lotus Light Reiki. And then our first public class, open to the public, was last spring of 2025. So my journey with Lotus Light Reiki has been very mystical. It has been very healing for me, because I've had to go from being conditioned to not talk about these things and to hide these things from other people out of fear, to really finding my voice and finding in my heart what I'm here to do, and then finding the courage to step out and do it, which is what I'm doing now. I've done a tremendous amount of healing in that regard. So I am very committed now. I agreed to become the steward of Lotus Light Reiki lineage in this world. I know there will be a point in time where it will be passed on to others, because I am, at a stage of my life where I may be able to invest another 10 years in this kind of work. But my real goal is in training as many people as I possibly can, to give them a very, very good understanding of Lotus Light Reiki, and so that they can go into the world and teach other people. And this will be done just as Master Usui did at his time. He just took a lantern, he went into the square of a town that he was passing through, and he just began talking about Lotus Light Reiki. So that's what I'm also doing. I give public talks. They're usually just given for a donation. I pass the empowerment because I want people to experience the energy and the benefits of the energy. So I'm Karen Kovacs, and I'm in this world now to extend and support Lotus Light Reiki in the world, and also to work on my own ascension process and to help as many others as I possibly can. Thank you.